Hello and welcome to a Wednesday edition of the Burnham Brothers podcast. And I am flying solo on Wednesday, but I didn't want the week to get too deep before we talk a little week one of college football. Unfortunately, Shane and I were not able to work out our schedule. He has been on the road. He caught four or five games in 4 days on the road, and we just could not get our schedules worked out for today. But wanted to hop on and talk a little bit about Florida State and Alabama. I have been covering Florida State for the entirety of Mike's tenure at Florida State, and obviously Willie's last year for the Osceola, then the last 3 years for Rivals. And so anyway, a lot of the narrative out there on Florida State Florida State's win over Alabama seems to be that it has more to do with Alabama being bad, narratively speaking, than Florida State. And I don't know whether you follow me on Twitter at PatB5153 or on my Facebook football page, the Burnham Brothers college football page. But listen, there is evidence everywhere that this was just a good old-fashioned butt kicking. When you take a look at the tape and you see those clips that I put out and see the clips that are all over Twitter, Facebook, social media, with guys that have access to the All-22, this was simply a butt kicking physically. And the stats bear that out. FSU 230 yards rushing to Alabama's 87. Sacks and tackles for loss. Florida State had 3 sacks, 7 TFLs, and Alabama had 1 sack and 3 TFLs. So clearly, one of the two teams was playing on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage more than the other, and that was Florida State. And listen, there's obviously some bad tape out there on Alabama. Guys not hustling, guys not giving their all. We've seen that in the past at Florida State. But listen, a team consists of 85 players and about 20 coaches. And the fact of the matter is the team that was more well-prepared, tougher, and more physical and played with the most effort won that ball game. And that's why Florida State won 31-17. And really, this game was gone over with 9 minutes and 45 seconds to go in the third quarter. When Florida State went up 24-7, you saw a listless and despondent Alabama football team. And if not for a muff punt, this probably never gets to 31-17, but you can't play if, buts, and whats. But listen, this was nothing short of a butt kicking by Florida State. When you look at the stats, Florida State's 5 scoring drives, all were 52 yards or more. That means you are establishing your will and placing your will on the other team, and that's what Florida State did. When you look at their scoring drives, you have a 7-play, 75-yard scoring drive to answer Alabama's opening drive. And I'm sure when a lot of people saw that opening drive, they're like, oh, no, here we go. Alabama, 10 plays, 75 yards, 6.5 minutes. I was one of those people. I was like, that's too methodical. That's not a good sign. And then, of course, Tommy Castellanos and the offense respond with a 7-play, 75-yard drive. So we found out something early about this football team. It's got some resolve. It showed itself early. Then they followed that up on a second drive with another touchdown. 8 plays, 65 yards. Their shortest drive was 52 yards. Shortest scoring drive was 52 yards, but took 9 plays over 4.5 minutes. Then in the second half, the touchdown that really kind of iced the game for them or would prove to be the pivotal score was a 2-play, 68-yard drive, 36 seconds. But again, sustained drives for the most part, 4 scoring drives, 7, 8, 9, and 10 plays, 52, 65, 75, and 75 yards. The only one that was quick was the 2-play, 68-yard drive in 37 seconds. On the other hand, Alabama really did not have a lot of sustained drives. They struggled to consistently move the ball in Florida State. You had their longest drive of the game came on their first drive, 75 yards. Now, they did have a 9-play drive on their second drive, which ended up with a missed field goal, but only 40 yards. Then you saw their next 3 drives, a total of 12 plays for just under 60 yards. And then their field goal drive in the third quarter, 12 plays, 53 yards, was their second best drive of the game. And then they finished they had a 7-play, 60-yard drive to come within 1, but kind of late in the game, playing catch-up. But anyway, it was a dominating win by Florida State. I think it was the win of the weekend in college football. Listen, hats off to Mike Norvell and his staff. What they've done in 9 months to turn this roster over and reestablish a mentality of toughness and physicality to his football program is remarkable. Again, Alabama may have its problems, but they did not respond to getting punched in the mouth by Florida State. And I'm proud of what this program has been able to do in 9 months. Listen, Mike made the changes that he needed to make on his staff. You can automatically see that this offensive line plays with more effort, with more physicality, and is playing smarter. You watch them in stunt and pass pro pickup. Excellent. They had issues with that last year. We talked about it in our practice reports. We talked about it in our game reports last year for the Osceola. Tommy Castellanos, I said when Florida State signed him, I was going to be neutral about this because he is one of the most dynamic players in college football with the ball in his hand, and that proved to be the process. I said on J.P. Peterson's show on Friday that he had his ability to change and flip the field could help get Florida State an upset somewhere along the way. I absolutely did not think it was going to be Alabama, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. Castellanos made them aware of where he was every time he took a snap. Gus Malzahn was creative in his offense. We saw some trick plays. They got Micaiah Danzy into the picture. He had a great game, of course, very fast kid. You saw 3 or 4 running backs play. Squirrel Wright made the great catch to set up the first score. Pittman put his stamp on the game. Randy Pittman, the tight end, put his stamp on the game early with a great block on one of the early plays. Really set the mentality of the game, set the physicality of the game on offense. But, yeah, just really impressive to watch how big a strides this football program has taken in 9 months under Mike Norvell and his revamped coaching staff. But listen, we said Herb Hand was an upgrade, and it was. I can remember talking to an old college football coach last year who said offensively he just didn't think Mike had enough help outside of Chris Thompson, and that certainly looks to be coming to fruition. Tommy Castellanos took a lot of heat about some of his preseason comments about Alabama not having Nick Saban, and Nick Saban was not there to save them. And listen, you can talk as long as you can back it up. I had my doubts on whether they could back it up. They certainly did. And, of course, the defense did a great job of backing it up for Mike Norvell and the offense. It was complimentary football across the board, but you certainly saw a much stouter defense, a defense that was more disruptive. We saw multiple 3-man front, 4-man fronts. It was really quite impressive. We saw a lot of activity, a lot of guys being active on this defense. You saw the potential of Darrell Jackson start to come to the forefront. I used him in a variety of ways. I don't know if you saw him get off the double team block and make a tackle at the line of scrimmage. You had guys like Mandrell Desir stepping up, the true freshman who looks like he could be a problem and has a very bright future at Florida State. And then, of course, you saw DeAndre McCray set up a sack for Daniel Lyons, or set up a pressure for Daniel Lyons, ended up in an incomplete pass. Listen, it was really fun to watch. And if you watched us do our podcast last year post-game, they were hard to do each and every week. So this was a fun week to watch Florida State football. I remember Tony White talking about Earl Little being him in spring practice. And, of course, we had not seen that the year before. So you wanted to see whether Earl Little was really going to end up being legit. And, of course, he had an impressive game, led Florida State in tackles. But, listen, Florida State was the more physical, more well-coached football team, and that shows up on the film and on the stat line. I mean, Florida State got off the field got Alabama off the field on third down. The Tide were 6 of 17. Florida State was almost at a 50% third down conversion rate at 5 for 12. But listen, this was a team win all the way around, and it was complimentary football, and it was fun to see. Now, what does this do? This, I think, resets everyone's expectations for Florida State's football program, right? When you look at the short-term schedule, you got East Texas A&M this weekend at Doak Campbell, followed by an off week. Then you get Kent State. Then you go to Virginia on a Friday night game. Now, I've talked to someone that went to Virginia's game on Friday night. They don't think they're world beaters, but they think that they have taken a step in the right direction. Now, is it a big enough step to compete with Florida State? They'll play the game and we'll see. But certainly for me, this resets my expectations for Florida State, particularly if the preseason media polls are right about the rest of the league, being Stanford, Wake Forest, Virginia, and Virginia Tech, being towards the bottom, or actually they were ranked in 4 of the last 5 spots in the preseason poll. So it really comes down to what do you do against Miami, Clemson, NC State, and Florida, right? Those are the big 4 based off public perception. But I think it certainly puts some things in play that I don't think, at least I saw, coming into the season. And I think what it tells us is that really in the portal era, what do we really know about any one team from year to year, right? Florida State did not do so well in the portal last year, hit home runs at least early, right? And then you've got some freshmen. Cromall played, Boggs played. I don't think Boggs had a catch, but certainly, I don't think he had a carry on a catch. But, you saw Danzy 3 carries for 56 yards, redshirt freshman. Cromall 7 for 31. Sawchuck 6 for 28. All 4 of FSU's leading rushers, Castellanos led with 16 carries, 78 yards, all over 4 yards per carry. Listen, they're going to do some things on offense, personnel-wise, that are going to cause defensive coordinators nightmare. It's option football. You drag Jalen Lucas across the formation, snap the ball before he crosses the quarterback. Now you got to defend the jet sweep. You got to defend the zone read if they don't give it to him. Then if they don't give if it's zone read, it's not zone read handoff, then it's keep. Then you got to worry about the quarterback. Is he going up the middle? Is he going outside? Or is he going to do what he did in one of those plays and throw it for completion? So this offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think this defense under Tony White is going to be fun to watch. And I think that, at least for me, has reset my expectations for what this football team can be. And I think it's going to be a fun football team to watch. Now, we've all got to be leery of overreacting to anything that happens in week 1, right? Because there are some things that happen around college football this weekend that have gotten some extraordinary overreaction. But let's talk about that a little bit. You had Texas go to Ohio State. Very defensive ball game. Both offenses struggled. Ended up being Ohio State 14, Texas 7. Arch Manning did not look good. I know there's the famous Twitter video out there where they track every pass, and some of his incompletions were bad. I think that there's going to be some overreaction to how bad Arch is. Did he play well? No. Does he have a chance to play better? Yes. Third start, first start of this season on the road. Listen, the media built him up, and the media is already tearing him down. Arch didn't have anything to do with that. I do think he'll get better. I do think Texas will get better. And I expect at the end of the day that they will be relevant in SEC as we get deeper into the season. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But there's certainly some questions going in on Texas and Arch Manning right now, and rightfully so. LSU beat the one thing I will say about the Texas thing, and time will tell, right? Time will tell us everything. But Ohio State's a good defense. Ohio State's is a defending national champion and has about a $40 million payroll. They're going to do well, and it doesn't surprise me that Texas went in there and struggled with a first-time starting quarterback. The other game that was interesting to me, LSU beating Clemson. A lot of people thought that Cade Klubnik is going to be the best quarterback in the country. Certainly did not look like it on Saturday night against LSU. LSU, at least at first glance, looks to have solved their defensive problems that have plagued them for 2 years. Obviously, the quarterback looked really, really good for them, but they totally dominated Clemson in the second half, and really looks like Brian Kelly might have a team to be reckoned with. They were my pick in the in the SEC to make it to the SEC championship game, simply because they have an issue that a lot of other teams don't have. They have in that league. Texas has got a first-time starter. Alabama's got a first-time starter. Auburn's got I guess Auburn, he started Oklahoma last year, but they've got something that some of the other top teams in that league don't have, and that's a proven starting quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier. So they certainly look good. Miami, Notre Dame, that was worth the cost of admission to that game. Miami's offensive line looked really good. Notre Dame's got a good quarterback. Miami looks like they're going to be able to run the ball and get it. They got some good receivers. The true freshman looked really good. Golly, I can't remember the kid's name off the top of my head. But anyway, number 10. But he looked really good. Another team that looked really good was USF and their beat down of Boise State. They got after the 25th ranked Broncos. They look like a Power 4 team against a Power 5 team in that game. They're going to go into Florida this week with a little confidence, and that can go a long way for a football team. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that game shapes up in Hogtown on Saturday afternoon. Can USF take that confidence that they got against Boise State and have it carry over into a very, very tough place to play in Gainesville? Another team I'm really impressed with is Iowa State. Listen, they are already 2-0 on the season. And they play Iowa this week. That's a huge game, the Cy-Hawk game. That's the battle for the Cy-Hawk Trophy, excuse me. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Iowa State can go into Iowa and come away with a win there. But listen, fun, exciting week one for sure. It's amazing how fast the season goes when I think about Iowa State already playing their third game this weekend, which means they are 25% of the way through their regular season schedule. And yet it feels like we just started football season for most of us. All right. Probably the game that a lot of overreaction to, North Carolina getting totally destroyed by TCU. This kind of reminds me of the narrative that ESPN and some of the rest of the national media, this was not so much about TCU as it was North Carolina. It's similar to how they're making it. It's not so much about Florida State. It's about Alabama. No, this was about the better football team went in and won the ball game. Was I surprised that North Carolina got beat? No, 70 new players, new coaching staff, most of whom had never coached on the college level, right? So I was not shocked that North Carolina got beat. I was shocked in how they got beat. They looked uncompetitive. Bill Belichick on the sideline looks uninspired. He did not interact with his team very well. I said from the get-go, this was going to be very interesting to see how this plays out for North Carolina this year, and it has not gotten off to a good start. TCU was a much better football team. And we talked about this past offseason, when they hired Bill Belichick. One of my comments was Bill Belichick is going to find out that there are some very, very good coaches in college football. And it did not take Sonny Dykes and his staff, Kendall Briles, long to put a beat down on the Tar Heels, who really, until Max Johnson got in the game, did not show much of anything offensively, defensively, did not play well on any level. So we'll see how they respond. We'll talk a little bit more about the games this week later, but they have Charlotte, which should be a little bit easier task than TCU, but we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, you're already hearing that Kalen DeBoer is in trouble at Alabama. We'll see how that plays out. I think Alabama will improve. I think Florida State will continue to get better. Listen, it's one game for all these teams. 11 games ago, I was glad to see that. I can't remember if it was Luke Petitbon or Gunnar Hansen, one of the offensive linemen from Florida State, said, listen, we've got to flush out this week. We're already on to the next week, and we've got to be prepared for this game. So I love this time of year. I love all the overreaction. I have it. You guys have it. I think we all do. But listen, I thought some of the teams that were a little bit better than I thought they were coming into the season after week one. I thought Colorado was better than I thought they would be, even though they lost. They looked more mature physically, particularly on defense. Dion had some clock management issues at the end of the ball game that he is fighting with the press over. So we'll see how. I said this was going to be an interesting season in Boulder, and it certainly has started out as the Buffs are 0-1 after week one. Listen, I thought Auburn looked better against Baylor than I expected. Hugh Freeze had kind of fumbled his way through the offseason with some interesting comments that didn't go over well with the fan base, but they certainly looked like they got some explosive players on offense, more so than last year with Jackson Arnold at quarterback. And, of course, we knew their defense would be pretty good, and it looked really good. The South Carolina-Virginia Tech game, I thought it was going to be more competitive. I think that Virginia Tech's got an issue at quarterback that if they don't get solved, they are going to be in trouble early and often. It did not look to be a good situation. I thought Sellers played okay for South Carolina. I think he is a guy that can beat you on any given night. I think he is a wild card for that football team and for the SEC. So we'll see what happens there. But a very interesting week. Listen, we saw Utah go and wipe out UCLA. UCLA spends $4 million on a quarterback and has a lot of trouble moving the ball against Utah. And Utah is one of my bounce back teams for this year. But they had a very strong showing against UCLA, and we'll see how that conference carries out. I think I've already mentioned that I think Iowa State's got a chance to be a major player this year with Rocco Becht. I really like him. I think he is one of the more underrated players in the nation, at least through what will be 3 weeks for the Cyclones after this weekend. So a fun week one of college football. I'm disappointed that I was not in Tallahassee for this game. I watched it on television, but I was on JP's show earlier today, and he was in town, and certainly sounds like it was a festive time in Tallahassee before, during, and after the game. But just an unbelievable performance by Florida State, which resets the entire paradigm for the 2025 season for the Seminoles. Before I go, obviously, there was news on Sunday night, I believe, when it broke, that FSU linebacker Ethan Pritchett had been shot in Havana, still in critical but stable condition. Sounds like there's still a lot of concern for him based on what has been shared by Mike Norvell and the Florida State football family. Of course, I got to know Ethan a little bit working for Rivals, having corresponded with him and talking to him when he was here on visits. Seems like a great kid. And, of course, our thoughts and prayers are with Ethan as he goes through this struggle. And hopefully he will heal. And that sounds like based just on, listen, no, all generalities, right? Nothing specific, but certainly doesn't sound like a great situation. So as much as we love football, as important as it is, we do want to stop and think about him and his family and the Florida State football family. And hopefully Ethan will be on the mend soon. I apologize for Shane not joining us tonight. We will try to get that worked out for tomorrow and try, now that we're in football season, to get to a regular normal schedule, whether it be 2 times a week, 3 times a week. But I will be back tomorrow. Shane may or may not be with us, but somebody will. But listen, please subscribe to the Burnham Brothers channel if you're watching on YouTube. And then, of course, if you're you can also sign up to follow us on Spotify or Apple or Amazon if you listen from a podcast only perspective. But listen, fun college football weekend. I love this time of year. Can't get enough of it. Wish there was Thursday night college football this weekend. There's not. We got to save it for the NFL. But a fun weekend. I'm sure there's a ton of stuff I missed, but it's just not as fun to do a podcast solo as it is with somebody else to bounce stuff off of. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this 17th edition of the Burnham Brothers podcast, and we'll see you on Thursday. Have a great night, and if you're a Florida State fan,